The single most consequential event in Chicago's history started with a small fire in a cow barn in a poor Irish neighborhood on the southwest side. It was October 1871, and the Midwest had been hit with a severe drought. The fire spread with such terrifying speed that within hours it generated its own weather pattern, spawning tornadoes of fire. The inferno raged for 2 days, wiping out the entire business district and 18,000 buildings. The tragedy offered an unprecedented opportunity to rebuild a major city from the ground up. Architects, engineers, carpenters, promoters, investors, speculators rushed in from all over the world. 14 years later, Chicago erected the world's first skyscraper. But in the fire's immediate aftermath, 1/3 of the city was left homeless. Out of 300,000 residents, 100,000 needed shelter. Nearly half moved to the North Shore, doubling the population overnight. For years after the Chicago fire, it was not unusual to see homeless men traipsing up and down the train tracks in search of work, food, or shelter. Many homeless lived in shanties and tents in the dense woods north of Tower Road. Some unscrupulous businessmen took advantage of the situation. A Chicago realtor named E. Ashley Mears built 14 mansions in Lakeside, in the area where the Hubbard Woods School is today. It was Winnetka's first subdivision. The homes were adorned with ornate scrollwork and looming towers, so as to be visible from the passing trains. In truth, they were sham houses of shoddy, incomplete construction and paper-thin walls. The buyer was expected to finish the work. The idea was to ensnare people desperate for immediate housing who wanted to live in Winnetka to collect the down payment. Unable to complete the work or make the mortgage, the buyer would be forced out, and the next buyer moved in. This Mears house stood exactly where the Hubbard Woods School is today. This photograph was taken with a child's homemade camera. Only one house was ever completed, seen here on the corner of Green Bay Road and Westmore. One by one, each property was foreclosed upon. Mears lined his pockets before fleeing the country, and Winnetka was stuck with a row of 13 fake houses. The flimsy structures began falling apart. They became a haunt for rats, bats, screech owls, chimney birds, and the homeless.
They gave the appearance of being mansions, but they were so cheaply constructed they could hardly stand by themselves when a stiff wind struck them. They were colder than barns. Strange lights were said to flit through the rooms. Not a child would venture into one of these houses alone. Frank Wines.
Residents complained, but the village felt powerless to do anything about them. Then one night, lightning struck one of the towers and it caught fire. Soon the building was engulfed. Then the one beside it caught fire and also burned. What was once an eyesore was now a monstrosity. Finally, the village had had enough and razed them all at once, ending Winnetka's first encounter with unscrupulous developers.